Hi everyone, it's your realtor Jill again. Today I have the privilege to talk to Mark Mahana, my very, very good friend and also a pest person because he knows everything about pests and he serviced my own house from the beginning. When I moved back to my house, I have a massive cockroach infestation and he came to the rescue. So I'll let Mark introduce himself to you guys. Mark,
Right.
please.
Sure, Mark Mahana. I've been licensed for I think this is my 22nd year, and but we've been in business. The name of my company is Green Pest Guys, and we've been in business for this is our 16th year, and we're excited. And it is my privilege to visit with you, Jill, as well. Yeah, we've had some challenges over your place to start with, but I think we've got them all under control. Um, yeah, so it is time of the year that we've come together actually to talk about termites a little bit.
Perfect, perfect. Now, I would love to ask you some questions to educate our audience about termites and everything. I know it could be a scary subject when it comes to a house. Like when I show a house and we suspect there's termite or there a termite treatment in place. Honestly, one of my buyer backed out of the house because she saw a termite treatment in place in one of the
Mhm.
houses, and I told her that it's actually a good thing. So
Right.
after the conversation today, hopefully they all are better educated on this topic.
Yes.
The first question I have for you is there any way to spot termite infestation when walking a home?
First thing to kind of understand is there's two types of homes. There's those that have termites, and then those that are going to get them. It's unfortunate to say that. It depends on how long a house is around, and a couple of factors. Whenever you walk around a home, can you guys spot termites? It's absolutely possible. Termites can build a termite tube going up on the side of the slab and make themselves visible, make themselves known. I think we're going to cover a question about conducive conditions. And
Wait, go back to my question. Is there any way to spot termite when we walk a
okay,
home?
okay,
Yes.
all right. So is there any way to spot termites whenever you walk a home? Absolutely. You can particularly find them if you walk around the outside and see a termite tube going up on the outside. Additionally, if you happen to be walking around on the inside and you see a little piece of dirt coming out of a piece of sheetrock and then going back in and you flake it off and there's a little hole that's in the sheetrock, that's definitely a sign. Another sign could be that if you're looking at a piece of trim board down at the bottom or even like a windowsill, and
Hmm.
you see that the paint kind of warbles a little bit or it's wavy looking, um, please be careful in touching that because your finger might go through the board. Because what termites will do is they will eat the wood out from underneath it, leaving just the paint. And so
Oh, wow.
next thing you know, you put your finger right through the paint because there's no more wood beneath that area.
Right.
So yes, you can find it, but the chances are is that perhaps the previous owner may have been nice enough to have general pest who came by.
So go back to the outside a little bit. How do I spot a termite too?
They're very good at disguising themselves, but dirt is in itself brown, and our cement slabs are usually gray, and so you can find a trail or a tunnel sometimes going up on the outside of it. They do, however, like to hide themselves. They don't like sunlight, of course, and of course, I have seen where moss covers the outside cement slab because there's a whole lot of water from the sprinkler system, and the
Hmm.
termites will build underneath that moss, for instance. Additionally, you'll find in many homes they will remove the boards to build these slabs in at the corners, and they'll remove the boards too early, and it will cause a crack underneath, like three-dimensionally on that corner. And so they can go underneath that corner where you can't see it. But as far as side and what y'all can see or find as realtors, you have to know the difference between termite tubes versus fire ant tubes. If you can take your
Yeah.
finger and brush across it and all of the granules move and you see fire ants coming out, then you know it's just fire ants. If you
Yeah.
swipe your finger across a tube and it doesn't move, it's usually termite tube because it's extremely hard. They have like glue in their saliva that cements it together.
A follow-up question. When I see a lot of ant hills, does it
Mhm.
mean that that's termite infested?
They are mortal enemies against each other, fire ants and termites. However, because of my previous statement that their tubes are extremely hard, fire ants won't try to make an incursion into those. Even though they're mining dirt, they will not try to go against it. For instance, I had a tree stump at my mom's home,
Mhm.
and I saw lots and lots of fire ants, and I thought, man, there's got to be termites in this termite stump. I mean, in this stump as well. And
Yeah.
sure enough, I busted that thing open. there were termites living right next to the fire ants, but because the termite tube was so, fire ants didn't know it. But as soon as I breached that, the fire ants, they went to battle and the termites lost. They're not as numerous as fire ants, but and plus
God.
the termite kind of has this little duct on his head and he shoots out acid, and so it's kind of an interesting thing.
So ant and termite can
They
absolutely
can
co.
they can act right. I've seen tubes and then a fire ant mound on the outside of it on the house,
Okay.
where you wouldn't even see the termite tube unless you scrape away the fire ants.
Oh,
And they have been active. So it's always good to have general pest control on a piece of property so that you don't get both of those coexisting, because they can hide. The fire ants will definitely hide a termite tube.
okay. The next question is, what are the top 3 conducive conditions that practically invite termites into a house?
Oh, this is a good one. First one, high soil up against the siding or the brick slab.
Right.
Oftentimes, we build this home and everybody wants to have their grass even with their slab so that it doesn't look unsightly. Throw that out. You want to be able to force the termites to be able to traverse about 1.5 to 2 inches of
Mhm.
sight from where your grass is or your soil is to where
Mhm.
your brick or your bottom siding begins. That's the
Mhm.
first one. And many
Yeah.
houses do not follow that rule. And plus, over the years, people will put flower beds up against the house and it raises the soil line right in those areas. And that is the most common area that we find termites, is because the soil was too high.
Okay.
The other one is the second one, conducive condition is brick overlays. It's always beautiful to see a home that has this brick porch on it.
Mhm.
And many times it is also normal to have those bricks kind of wrap around and go down into the dirt. Again, going back, um, but either way it goes, termites can tunnel through cement. They can tunnel through brick mortar. They can tunnel through bricks if they so deem it necessary. They just need the a crack, the width of a human hair, to get started, and then they just tunnel right through that. Doesn't matter if it's stone or whatnot; they will go right through that. So that's the second one. Is we come they will tunnel across a patio and then hit the door frame and just eat the door frame, or they'll tunnel to a brick column if the brick
Mhm.
column goes down into the soil. So
Yeah.
bricks are beautiful. They are wonderful at preventing moisture from coming into the house, at least a little. But that's definitely one of the conducive conditions. Last conducive condition that really comes to mind is not a non-treatment. If someone doesn't treat the soil before a slab is poured, and in the state of Texas, it's not required to treat the soil before a slab is poured on top of it for a house structure. With the only one exception, and that's commercial and industrial buildings. They do require that, but homes, residential, are not required in the state of Texas, and
Okay.
that's the biggest mistake. And anytime that I talk to someone, hey, I'm getting ready to build a house. Oh, really? Here's the things that I want to encourage you to do. Treat the soil, and then once your slab is put up, and your studs get put up, treat the bottom section of your studs, and then after you get all your landscaping done, go ahead and have us come and do a treatment around or put the stations in place to help mitigate any future termite.
It's so super informative, because we
Yeah,
have no idea that the soil don't get treated before the foundation got
right. Yeah,
poured.
it's unfortunate. We're lobbying to at least the packs that are associated with pest control are trying to lobby for that to be an item that hits the state Senate and congressional houses, so that we can at least have that be something that people are made more aware of. Um,
Hmm.
the other aspect, and there was a question that was on here about wood destroying insect reports, that realtors usually will invite someone to come do a wood destroying insect inspection. Um, Most states call it a wood destroying organism, because there are the wood destroying animals that are out there. There's the beetles, there's termites, there's carpenter bees, there's carpenter ants. And those obviously are the kickers. But another one that people don't think of is wood rot. There's fungi that eat wood, and upon inspection, we are um, other states anyway are supposed to report the wood rot. The national inspection report that's used for it's called the NPMA 33, which is for those that are in military, that the government, if they're going to get a government loan, they have to do that particular one, and it does specifically ask for wood rot. And so
Right.
that's another thing that we're trying to get lobbied and put before, to change that to WDO in the state of Texas,
Yeah.
because it's
One
not
thing I want
just termites that come in and
thing I want to point out to the audience is that you should get a termite service from Mark, because he, from the beginning when you built your house, he wanted to build right and get treatment for
Yeah.
you, so instead of not telling
Right.
you that, and then later on have the service from you. So
It's a
this is an
whole lot easier to prevent than it is to mitigate, and go forward after the fact that you've got something, for sure.
Perfect. Okay. So a follow-up question to that is
Sure.
it true that a brick house can actually be more vulnerable to termites than a wood
Again,
side
those,
house?
yeah, going back to those two conducive conditions, brick overlays on homes, and then the soil height up on the house. If someone has hardy siding or vinyl siding or something like that, or wood siding for that matter, it's not any less of a, well, hardy or vinyl siding is not any more of a draw. The wood siding might be a little bit more of a draw.
Yeah.
Like nowadays, I've seen homes that they do log cabin type homes. Those are much higher for there to be a chance of getting termites, obviously.
Okay.
But for brick, the only thing that I would just draw attention to would be that as long as you have 1.5 to 2 inches of your slab seam, that's always the best practice.
It's funny how you mentioned, brick home and hardy plank, because last week when I was interviewing an insurance agent, his name is Angel Worley, and he mentioned that brick homes have lower insurance rates than
Correct.
other.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And most of it is that the replacement value for brick is much higher. So but additionally, you won't get fire or anything that will impact a brick home as much as you would.
Yes. So can termites actually eat through drywall and wallpaper, or do they only stay in the studs?
Nope. They will completely consume wallpaper, and they will completely consume drywall. They don't necessarily eat it to eat it, but they eat it to mine through it. And so, for instance, what I have actually seen is that they will actually go into the drywall to get to the paper that's on both sides of the drywall and eat that, leaving the paint on the outside and some of the drywall here, and then on the inside of the wall they'll have that completely eaten, all the paper. But there's not really any kind of material out there that termites really don't go through. They will go through plastic. People think, oh my gosh, that's plastic. They go through plastic. They will go through cement. They will go through these hardy board if they need to, and it's just a matter of they just have these mandibles that just pick and pick and pick away at whatever's in front of them. And as I said before, they only need the start of something that's the width of a human hair to get started on it.
Is there anything that they don't eat through? Metal?
Yeah, metal, obviously. But the other caveat to that is that they do, again, I think I mentioned that they have this acid gland that they shoot acid at their enemies. And I have noticed that I have found termite tunnels on the outside of people's homes on the brick, on the slab. And what I found, took it off, that they've actually, the acid that's on their body has eaten away at the cement. And acid will eat away anything, including metal, over time. And that's just a matter of time. But I'm sure that it's probably not quick. But they can't, like, they won't go into a metal building and consume the metal building, but they will go in to eat the paper off of the sheetrock and things of that nature. My nephew owns a dental practice, and his is all metal construction, and yet he calls me up and says, Mark, I've got termites. And I come, and his place is up in Dallas, and we have a green pest guys up in Dallas as well. And we go, and sure enough, he's got termites, and they are eating. In a dental practice, they have these wood islands, and your chair is usually next to the wood islands on each side of it. And sure enough, they were coming up the plumbing line on the inside, in between the cement and the plumbing, and that's how they entered into that structure. And so they are very creative.
Can you show us how to tell the difference between active termite damage and old termite damage?
The active termite damage, you are literally going to see the termites in there if they're active. The other thing that really tells the tale if it's old damage is that, remember how I told you that it's extremely hard, that their tunnel material is extremely hard? If it's not active and it's older, usually the granules will crumble and they'll crumble away. If it's an active tube, the issue is that is their air conditioning. That tube is climate controlled. And if I go and I knock a tube down, they will have that tube rebuilt within an hour. And that's in order to preserve the moisture that's inside of that tube. They have to have a high moisture content. in order to survive, and it's somewhere north of about 12% moisture. And so that's one of the indicators that if you're able to easily flake away something, check to see if it's ants, and if it's not ants, then it could have been termites. But just because you don't see them doesn't mean that they aren't active. It just means that maybe they're not there right then. But if it's really, really old, it will flake away really easily.
Got it. Got it.
Now, in the very case at my father-in-law's house, whenever they had those termites right on the inside of the house, they came up and they followed the sink that went into their laundry room. And whenever he tore out the trim board, he didn't find any active termites, but they had eaten about, I don't know, 12 or 14 inches of the trim board.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the trim boards are not treated, versus the studs that are in a home usually have a treatment up to about 2.5 feet, which is one thing that we do and we recommend.
You treat for termite? Do you treat, underground and then you open the wall and treat it too, or you just
So
underground?
it depends. Like if I get the luxury of telling someone the process during their building of their home, then yes, we would go ahead and we would say, okay, treat the soil, and then we spray those the studs of the home whenever there's nothing in it, no insulation, no sheetrock, no boards on the outside. We spray those studs with a termiticide product, and it's really boric acid, which is I have one of the other questions that you have later is regarding how dangerous are these chemicals. But boric acid, I mean, we use that to wash our clothes in. It's a cleaning agent, but that product is what we spray the studs with. And certain different types of manufacturers will produce different kinds of aids. Some of it will penetrate in very, very deep, and some of it just sits on the top. We use the one that penetrates because termites don't always start on the outside of the board. They start at the end and they tunnel in through it. And but yes, definitely that is one thing that we encourage people to do is have their studs sprayed during that process, and then afterwards again treat the soil or put the termite monitoring stations after that.
Do you usually see builders let you come in and do the treatment like that when they have just the stud?
Find it more frequent in custom builders. There are other builders, like I think DR Horton has a contract with a company called Home Team, and I'm not plugging Home Team, but they go in and they're supposed to spray the studs. It is more common now than it was 10 years ago, whenever I was in the beginnings of the business, that builders would do that. And so they do hire companies to come in and spray all the studs at least to 2.5 feet up on the house before they start putting all the outside shell material, whether it be brick or siding or something.
We don't have any sponsorship from Diahon or anything, but one advice for you buyers is when you build your own home, make sure you ask your builder for a pest control team to come in and spray the treatment on your stud before it got boarded up with sheetrock. That will be the best. The best
Additionally to that, Jill, is that they should give you a treatment disclaimer as to what they had done. If they treated the soil, they should have a pest control record of that, and the pest control company is required to supply any products that have been put down on said address.
If you find termites during an inspection, Mark, is the deal dead or is it an easy fix?
Usually, there's two ways to look at it, and as you know, as a realtor, getting the people who are moving out to pay for it or the people who are moving in to pay for it is always a challenge.
Right.
Obviously, if they already have termites, then it's on the seller that has to usually take care of that. Unless, of course, there's a what's the clause? It's as is clause, sold as is. But if you find them, it is obviously, or if you find damage to them, if there is no record, even though there's damage, if there's no record of a treatment, I would strongly encourage someone to have it treated, because that just means that they're gone for now. Maybe someone's the damage and used a chemical that y'all can go and buy down at Walmart or Home Depot or one of the box stores that has a termiticide, and they go and spray it. But usually the stuff that you get down there is an aromatic chemistry, and we don't use those because a termite can smell down to 1 part per million. And so as that is, usually what we'll find is the fact that with those products, the termites will run away from them for a period until the smell goes away, and then they come back in like gangbusters.
But it's not something so scary that can break somebody's heart, saying that,
definitely not. I mean, again, it goes back to my original statement. There's two types of homes: those that have termites and those that are going to get them. Some houses literally have a better informed builder, and they do
Mhm.
certain things to build their home to offset or mitigate their chances of there being termites. And
Mhm.
so those are some things that I'll mention later. But definitely you'll want to, if you find them, definitely have them treated.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mark. If a house has a routine termite treatment going, then
Mhm.
that will be the best case scenario because they probably have or have not found termite in the house, but they already have preventative treatment in place.
Right.
Now, the house that don't have the treatment in place is in more danger because we don't
Yes.
know when termite gonna come in, right?
Right. Again, referring back to my father-in-law, in that case, I was literally on my way to go to his house to do a general pest treatment. And he calls
Mhm.
me up and he says, "Hey, I've got termites." And I said, "Where?" And he said, "On the inside of the house, on an inside wall, not an outside wall where termites, you think that, hey, everything underneath the slab is protected and they should come up on the outside and come in that way." This one they came through a PVC pipe, and where the PVC was adjacent to the cement. And
Mhm.
they just followed that crack through, and then they came into the house and was eating some of his trim board. So I have multiple instances of that in my 16 years as a business and 22 years where I can tell story after story of not seeing any evidence on the outside of the house, but there were termites on the inside.
You mentioned your father-in-law house was a newer home too, right? Like 3 year
Yeah, I
old.
was only 3 years old. Uh-huh. I've
Okay.
had a
Yeah.
3-month-old house that had termites. They were
Wow.
swarming inside of the kitchen. They were coming up the kitchen pipes into the
Mhm.
house, and they were working on eating that kitchen island where the plumbing pipes went through. But zero
Um,
sign on the outside of the house.
Good to know. Good to know. What should I look for in a pest control warranty or bond before I sign the closing document?
Sure. Some of the things, obviously, so for instance, if you spray studs, there are warranties that are associated with that, produced by the manufacturer. And if termites, if it's treated properly and they come and they test it, suppose that they want to cash in on that warranty, um, and they got termites after all, they'll come and they'll cut those studs out and they'll test that stud to make sure that it was properly treated with the right amount of product. And because then, if not, then the termite technician didn't treat it properly and the ownership is on him. Um,
Mhm.
but uh, but as far as there are companies out there that will cover everything from full replacement of the wall and the sheetrock and the paint and all those kinds of things. And then you'll also want to look whether or not they don't cover those things. Through that, Jill, is that there are also companies that will only cover a certain type of termite. Here in our area, we have essentially significant species of termite. We have the eastern subterranean termite, which is approximately. Are we still recording?
Yes.
Okay. Um, I was getting a phone call, so I'm not sure. But there are three significant types. There's the eastern subterranean, which is predominant. They're 90% of all termites here. And then
Mhm.
we have a drywood termite, which doesn't require ground touch at all. They just fly and they nest up in this, like the roof rafters, and they'll start there. And they are only about 1 or 2%, maybe 3 in some of the hill country area. And then they have another termite that is called the Formosan termite, and they are on the rise dramatically. And
Okay.
they'll take and companies will not warranty against Formosans, even though they begin as a subterranean termite underneath the dirt. They will build these dirt hotels up in a higher area, and then they will air condition it from there. And they no longer need a ground touch anymore. And but those are the ones that will take a 1,600 square foot home in about 3 to 5 years and eat it down, make
Wow.
it bulldozable because they will have eaten that much. But people will usually see some sign in that time period.
Warranty, we need to look for what type of treatment they put in place, and then
Correct?
what type of termites they would warranty
Yes.
against. Okay.
Yes, and
Okay.
specifically for y'all, when y'all are trying to sell a home, you need to look to see if they've had a treatment before, if they have evidence, because that's one of those things that you're supposed to disclaim, that you have had termites before and that it has
Mhm.
been treated. If
Mhm.
there are signs of termites or damage and it hasn't been treated, that's when you definitely want to call a pest control company and get that treated.
Are the chemicals used in modern treatments actually safe for kids and pets?
You know, I think a chemist would tell you that water is a chemical, and that if a person, there is actually a condition that if you drink too much water, you wash out all your salts, and you can actually die from that. My brother-in-law is an ER doctor, and he's had one die on his watch that drank too much water. And there's these
Really?
fad diets of drinking too much water where you wash out the salt that it takes to have your muscles contract. and your heart is a muscle and it stops the heart. So you got to be careful, but I think toxicity is probably the proper term in terms of safety. There are things that are more toxic than others. The products that are predominantly used for termites, again, you have to remember where it's being put. It's being put in out of the way places where you're not going to come in contact with it, and it's not an aromatic or airborne product. It is always on the ground. Especially after it's been treated, there's nothing that will significantly impact. The product that we use is a product that is it's considered the industry standard whenever we're doing a liquid treatment, and it is considered a product that's been safe around pets and for years. In fact, if you're familiar with if someone has a pet, and they're definitely familiar with a product called Frontline or Frontline Plus. It comes in collars, it comes in drops that you put on your pet to prevent fleas and ticks from getting them or disturbing them. And it's at that level where they're able to keep those animals from biting them. And that is the exact product that we use in termite treatment. So we just have it under a different name, and it's called Termidor in our industry. And additionally, there is a second product that is a termite station, and that's considered the most green or favorable, less impact of any product that's out there. And that particular product, if a termite eats it, all it does, and it affects termites only in the way that it's there. What it does is a termite has an exoskeleton. That's like a suit of armor that I have on the outside. That's his skeleton. And in order for them to grow larger in stature, they must shed their outside and then harden up. What they erupt from that outside exoskeleton, and then their skin hardens. Well, the product that I'm referring to causes their outside shell to not get hard again, and then they die really of expiration. All the moisture leaves their body, and they die within a matter of hours after eating this particular product. And but there's no impact whatsoever to humans because of that. It's called an insect growth regulator, which is a product that they put in. It's like a core, and it's about the size of a 50-cent, or actually in between a quarter and a 50-cent piece in size, and they're about a foot long, or 8 or 9 inches long. And these stations go down into the soil, and you space them out around the home. And those, it's mated with which cellulose is a component in wood, which is what termites consume. And it's, I hate to refer to drugs in this nature, but it's kind of like the crack cocaine of the termite world, this particular product, because any tree that's out there in the world, hardwoods, wood has density to it. Like an oak tree is much harder, denser wood than a pine tree. Well, an oak tree wood has about 32 or 33% cellulose in it, which is the most for trees around here. And these little stakes have 70%. And so they're going to get that in this candy jar, and they're able to go to town. They love it so much that they go and they tell all their friends about this nice product that has really high amount of cellulose in it. And so they all come running to this particular station, and they all eat it, and they all die as a result of that, and they share it with others. And so it's the process.
Now, are those products used by you, or most of
Yes.
other pest control company would use the same product, or is there any regulation to control the level of chemicals in the products that used?
All of it is regulated. Especially termites are heavily regulated. The stations aren't necessarily regulated. They are actually overseen by the company that manufactures them. Anything that has an EPA product, Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, has a number that they assign to any chemical out there, and so they're all registered and they're regulated. Termiticides are regulated higher or more so than like the general pest products. But at the same time, like you can't. Well, I guess nowadays with do-it-yourself pest control and things of that nature, they're supposed to sell to the public, but they do. And I'm not sure, that's probably more of a preference, because we are regulated, which means we have to follow the rules. If someone else buys it and they're not a pest control professional, they may think, man, if I'm only supposed to put 2 ounces, man, I'm going to put a whole cup in there. and so the problem with doing that is that you're creating more possible runoff into the waterways and things of that nature. And additionally, and it's really kind of anti thought process, but more potent doesn't necessarily mean that you get a higher kill rate.
Got
And
it.
that's the danger. That's the danger with it.
Oh, this is
It's
definitely not a
mostly
DIY.
going to be, yeah. Well, I mean, that's mostly related to the environment. We want to foster and keep our environment safe, and so that's definitely something that you got to pay attention to.
Please do not DIY this treatment at your home. Contact a professional for that. Okay. Um, how often should the homeowner get professional inspection after they move in?
Whenever we do a termite station installation, we usually sign people to have us out twice a year. We place stations that are somewhere between 10 and 6 feet apart. And what's to prevent a termite from going in between the stations, right? And so we want to have eyes on a piece of property. If they have conducive conditions, we want to have them correct them if at all possible. If they refuse to correct them, then we're going to ask them to do a liquid treatment. If they are going to correct them, then yeah, we can go perhaps with a station, the termite station treatment, because there are different treatments associated with different types of incursions into the house. If someone has, like my father-in-law, and the situation inside of the house, we did a liquid treatment inside of the house where we place a hole in the cement, and we put as per regulation or per the label of the product, we're supposed to put 2 gallons of product down in that hole where those termites will be affected. And so we put 2 gallons of product down in that hole, and then we put stations around the house.
So say a person who asks you to come do inspection and you don't find any termite, good, right? They don't want to do any
Yep.
treatment or any repetitive treatment.
Right.
But then how often do they ask
You're
you to
going
come back again?
Yeah, in situations like that, it's one of those things, whether or not you like your odds whenever you go to play dice at Vegas. You have to honestly think, okay, could they pop up in the middle of my house like my father-in-law found? And he was
Yeah.
lucky. They don't always go and show their ugly head inside of a house.
Yes.
I had one particular instance where that was the case. They didn't show it, and they had about 80% of 2 kitchen islands. One of them was feet long by 4 foot wide. Another one was about 5 feet long by 2.5 feet wide. They had 2 kitchen islands, almost 80% fully consumed before they were found.
Mm-hmm.
And so you either put something in place or you run the risk of that happening. And I'm not an alarmist. Anyone can just not change the tire until they get it flat. But then why do we have insurance? Having a termite job done is like having insurance, so that you can protect your property, which is your largest asset.
It
Usually,
is. It is.
usually is the largest asset that we have besides our kinfolk, our
You don't
spouse and
want
our
your largest
kids.
asset. You don't
Right.
want your largest asset to be eaten away by little insects.
Yeah. It certainly is the case.
Which popular natural pest remedies are actually total waste of money?
Organic oils. If you're thinking about termites, organic oils can and will send them packing. The problem is with an oil is the oil dissipates. It aerosolizes and goes up and it vaporizes into the air and combines with the nitrogen and the CO2 and the oxygen that we breathe. And so that's where the complication lies, is that they go away so quickly. And if someone were to have their own natural remedy treatment and they wanted to treat for termites, they would probably have to be dousing product once every 3 weeks, all the way around their property, every 3 weeks, to the tune of about 4 to 5 gallons of product. And it can be done. The difficulty is that whenever you have termites, like my father-in-law, again, going back to that scenario.
I get mentioned so many times.
Yeah, I'm not profaning his unfortunate circumstances, but certainly is a good case in point, because it was pretty recent. It was in January.
Okay.
It was the end of January, 1st of February, but his particular instance. But that termites are subterranean. That means that they're underneath the soil. Whenever we go down and we put a liquid product, we actually have a rod that you inject into the ground. And you're supposed to inject up to 18 inches down into the ground. So we're putting product at least 18 inches, but it's also migrating deeper, maybe to the tune of 2 feet deep. And then we let it come out as we pull the rod back out. And so you're getting almost a 2 foot deep barrier of liquid as you go around a home. If you go and pour it topically on the outside of the house, you may penetrate maybe a couple of inches, maybe 4 inches at best. And therein lies the difficulty with self-treating. We carry tools. There's also a machine that injects into the soil all these little bitty needles, and then ejects into like 3,000 psi, and it goes extremely deep into the soil. And that's another tool that is used to do that application for protection, termite protection.
Again, people, termite treatment is not something you can DIY, do it yourself. Yeah, you cannot DIY termite treatment, and please leave it to professionals to do their job. Can a spotless home still have massive cockroach or bed bug infestation?
Yes, indeed. My sister is fastidiously clean. I'm using my family because I don't want to profane any of my other customers. But so my sister had the opportunity and to go to Turkey, and no offense to Turkey, the country Turkey, and she returned with bed bugs in
Oh,
her luggage, and she's fastidiously clean. And she comes and she empties her luggage and she shoves it right underneath her bed. No, sure enough, she got them. Cockroaches are travelers. Nowadays, people are utilizing spray foam insulation for new home builds, and that is a great idea for efficiency of a home, but it's a very bad idea for rodents, cockroaches, and termites. And so you have to weigh the balance of what you want to fight later. But cockroaches, I've heard, and I've literally seen cockroaches walking around on inside of microwave ovens as they're running. So we know that that they're going to be around in a nuclear holocaust. And so trying to prevent them is much easier than it is to stop. To have an infestation beat down, because once they're inside of your home, it's difficult to reach all the nooks and crannies once your home is built. And that's the difficulty. Bed bugs, they're more achievable because they have to have some sort of blood meal. Cockroaches don't necessarily have to come out when you want them to come out. Although there is an American colloquialism that says that talks about coming out of the woodwork. And whenever we speak to that in our industry, because whenever we spray products, people have a tendency to start to see them, and that's because they're coming out of the woodwork. They'll come across the products, and then all of a sudden the client starts to see them because of that product that's running around in their bloodstream.
So actually, when I have my treatment at my house for cockroach, Mark does warn me that, after you have the treatment in place, you see more activities than usual. I'm like, I want the opposite, but then period of time later, I
over time.
don't see any activity anymore. And I think we went to 2 rounds of treatment, and I completely got all the cockroaches out of my house. And it was German cockroach.
Yeah, they were the German species of cockroach, which are usually associated with restaurants or apartment complexes. And those, like I was referring to, bed bugs and cockroaches are that particular species of cockroach are considered traveling animals, traveling bugs. And just a little curious story on the end of that one. There was a place that we serviced, and it was brand spanking new. And lo and behold, they called me up and says, "Mark, we have German cockroaches." I said, "There's no way. You're only 2 weeks open." And it was a business. And so they had employees, and they had an employee locker room. And unfortunately, their employees brought them. I said, "Is your security system in?" And he said, "No, they're installing it tomorrow." I said, "Point that first camera at your employee lockers. And you don't want to pick on your specific employee, but you want to lay down perhaps a policy that they leave their purses and such out in their car, and or in their trunk or something, so it can be seen." But what had happened is an employee came in, they put their purse in there, and it went off to do their business. And there was a little shadow that came right out of that locker about 2 minutes after the employee had put it in there, and it was a cockroach. And so unfortunately, some circumstances of people, they don't treat, nor do they think that it's important to treat for said animals, and then they become at such a high level that they start traveling with them.
I have this crazy story about fleas. I am very sensitive to flea, and this one time I have this flea bites on my legs, all over both of my legs, and then I had Mark come in and treat my whole house for flea. I don't have carpets in the house. I don't have any pets in the house, no cats, no dogs. And I'm like, where the fleas come from? Turned out the flea was on my car. So it was biting I'm on my car, and I spent money to treat my whole house for it. So one more tip for you, audience, that you should vacuum your car very often so that they don't
that's right.
You on the car, because they feeding on you. They feasting on my blood, so they're not dying.
No. In fact, in order for them to go to the next stage of life, they actually have to have a blood meal. So you can close that car up and leave it out in the hot sun, and that will usually take care of things. But I can't remember. It was not in the full summer, was that? It was kind of spring or fall, was it?
No, it was in the summer. So I had
It
you
was
guys
in the
come
full
in.
summer. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So sometimes,
And then I was like,
but temperature, sometimes, you'll get 140 inside of a car, and sometimes that will just plain take care of it. But if it's not getting that, like last summer, we didn't get above 100, but maybe once. And so we had a mild summer.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I had my car in the garage all the time. I don't know if that
Oh, that's
now.
that could play a role. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, Mark, can you tell us more about your business, please?
Sure. Well, we started 16 years ago. I was a pharmaceutical rep. I was a drug dealer, and now I'm a contract killer. So,
A legal drug
um,
dealer.
right, I was literally a drug dealer, and now because people hire me to kill things, I consider myself a contract killer. So,
A
just got
serial
to keep it fun. But yeah, serial killer, I guess. But definitely started off just me and my wife, and she is a licensed technician, and as was my father-in-law. He had just resigned from being a middle school principal 2 years prior to that, and he saw that we were starting this business, and he said, "I don't have anything going on," and he came in, and we started the business, and we got it rolling and rocking and rolling. And so, family-owned business. We have branches here in Houston area. We do not cover the west southwest quadrant just yet of Houston, and we're just getting started down kind of in the Friendswood Clear Lake area. But anything north of I-10 we do cover, and then we have a branch up in Dallas Fort Worth area. Additionally, there's a branch over in Austin,
Okay.
and the Austin branch is run by a Navy SEAL, or a former Navy SEAL. Once a SEAL, always a SEAL, I think. But ironically, his name is Mark as well. And
Okay.
so he is Mark D with Green Pest Guys, and I'm Mark M with Green Pest Guys. So there's some differentiation that we have to do because we're both named Mark. But both of us are family owned, and we love clients, and we treat them just like family. And we are looking forward to hearing from you so that we can add you to our team and our partnership with treating your homes or your businesses.
One more thing that I wanted to add is that one time I have Mark come to my my client's home for treatment, and I was representing the seller. So the seller actually the one who paid Mark for his service. Now the buyer come in and saw the invoice and was like, "I need to talk to the manager because this must not be done right because they are so cheap. How come they're so cheap?" And then after talk with Elizabeth, your wife, she was totally convinced, and that's how
Yeah.
affordable.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you. I try
Yeah.
not to gouge people. That's never been my way. We do believe in providing the best service out there. We are a full service pest control, although the only thing pest related that we do not do is literally house tinting fumigation or commodity fumigation. So we don't do that. But we deal with varmints and animals and things that occupy the house. And then we also deal with all facets of all bugs that are out there.
Anything else you want to share to our audience today before we part ways, Mark?
Much was said about hiring a professional. Mostly it's tools and experience that make a team of professionals worth hiring. And the other thing too is we do have quite a few companies that have many rental homes. And it is a strong recommendation for y'all to use us because we have an extra set of eyes that go into your property, and we let you know whether your current tenants are taking care of your property or not. And so we have that as part of our protocol to notify the actual owner if we see something going awry or amiss in someone's home. So keep that in mind as well. But thank you so much, Jill, for bringing me on board to answer any questions for your industry. If you guys want to respond, and we can have a part 2 with any of the other questions that may pop up from this as a result of this,
Yeah.
please feel free to give me a call back.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you, Mark, for today. And if you guys have any questions, any concern, anything that you want to know further, please comment and let us know. Other than that, we will see you guys at the next time. Yes, sir.
Right.
Go ahead.
I forgot to give out my business. My business is Green Pest Guys. Our office phone is 832-948-8878. And of course, it's on the web, Green Pest Guys. And so we love to hear from you. Take care.
Yeah. And of course, I'm going to link Mark's business, his website, his contact information in the description box as well. So we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for watching.
All right.
Okay, I'm going to stop recording now.
Awesome.